Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Please subscribe with your notifications on and I'll be posting daily Teen Wolf content. Channels like Jade's Corner and Teen Wolf News inspired me to make content, and I've been a Teen Wolf fan from the very start. Now let's get right into the video. We open on Allison being shocked that Scott is a werewolf, and Scott jumps over the school bus and leaves. Stiles is now on screen. He tells Peter that he's not letting him leave Lydia on the field. He tells Peter to kill him because he doesn't care anymore, and Peter tells him to call Jackson to let him know where Lydia is. Allison is now coming off the bus and Chris rushes towards her to catch her and stop her from falling. Scott is now running in the woods and he falls to the ground and screams and cries. Jackson takes Lydia up and rushes towards everyone and begs for help. Stiles and Peter are now in the Jeep, and Peter says don't be mad, if she lives she's going to be a werewolf, and Stiles says then she's going to go out of her mind, try to kill him once a month, and Peter says twice a month because she's a female. Chris throws a vase at the wall and yells at Kate for telling Allison everything, and Chris says he knows about the clues she's been leaving, starting with the necklace. He then asks Kate why she's back there, and he says she hates this town and he had a network of names he could have called that are a lot closer than her, but she called first. Chris says he doesn't know who she's helping, and she says she's there to catch the alpha, the one who's been going around killing people at random. Chris then says not random because Sheriff Steelingsea can connect every murder back to Hale Fire, and Kate says that's even a better reason for Allison to know because they've always blamed them for that, and she also says that it has to be Derek and some other relative. Chris then says this is why she's taking Allison out of Beacon Hills tonight, and she's taking her to the house in Washington. Chris gets upset and says he wants both of them on the road in the hour. Allison is now seen talking to her mom. She says she just saw her boyfriend turn into a werewolf and her phone was ringing, then her mom grabs it. Allison then asks what they're going to do with him, and she says they have a moral code they follow, especially when they're that young, and Allison said that Scott didn't kill anyone. Her mom says this is a part of a longer conversation, and Allison says she wants to know now. Her mom tells her that what she wants now is not important, and she's catching a glimpse of something she's not ready to see. Kate tells Chris that he can't find the alpha without her and drives off. Allison's mom then asks if Kate's right, and Chris says Scott can find the alpha and he knows where to find Scott. Stiles is now seen with Peter and they get the computer from his nurse's car and she's dead in the trunk. Allison is now having flashbacks of the prom with Scott, and Scott hears the dogs howling. Stiles then says Peter still needs Scott's username and password and he doesn't know them, and Peter says he does. Peter said even if he couldn't hear Stiles' heart beating he could still be able to tell that he's lying. He slams Stiles' face into the laptop. Jackson is now at the hospital looking for Lydia, and the sheriff asks him what the hell happened to her, and he says he doesn't know. Then the sheriff says she's his girlfriend and she's his responsibility. Jackson says she's not, and he also said that she didn't go to the formal with him. She went with Stiles. Stiles asks what happens after Peter finds Derek, and he also says you're going to kill people, aren't you? Peter says only the responsible ones. Stiles then types in Scott's username and password, and Peter is shocked that both are Allison. Scott transforms and roars at the moon to locate Derek, and Derek hears this and roars back. Scott is now running on all fours towards Derek's location. Stiles then finds Derek's location. They are keeping him under the Hale house, and Peter hears the roar from Scott. Allison is now at the hospital and she sees Lydia unconscious. Kate says this is what werewolves do and they can't help it. Stiles then asks Peter if he's not going to kill him, and Peter says he's not the bad guy here, and Stiles says he turns into a giant monster with claws and fangs and you're not the bad guy here. Peter says he likes Stiles, and since he helped him he's going to give him something in return, and he asks Stiles if he wants the bite. He says if it doesn't kill him and it could he'll become like them. He says that night in the woods when he bit Scott it could have easily been Stiles, and he wouldn't have to stand by his side watching Scott get stronger and more popular. Peter then takes Stiles' arm and goes to bite it, and Stiles pulls his arm away and says he doesn't want to be like him. Peter says he might believe he's telling the truth, but he's lying to himself. Scott then finds the passage to the tunnel underneath the Hale house. Stiles is now at the hospital and he asks his dad if Lydia is going to be okay. His dad then says it's like her body is having an allergic reaction and going into shock. He asks Stiles if he knows who or what attacked her, and he says he doesn't know. The sheriff then asks if Scott doesn't know anything, and Stiles is shocked that Scott isn't there. The sheriff says he's been calling Scott's phone and he hasn't gotten a response. The hunter turns on the light and asks Derek if he's ready to have some more fun, then he swings the baseball bat at Derek. Derek catches it and knocks him out. Scott is now on screen. Stiles is now talking to his dad and he says that the girl in there has nothing to do with a 6-year-old arson case and he has a key witness and all he knows is the girl that's behind the fire has a very distinct pendant. Derek asks Scott to help him get free and Scott says no. Scott says Peter lied about not knowing what he was doing when he killed Laura. Stiles then takes Jackson's keys and they turn around and they are confronted by Chris with 2 other hunters. Chris asks if they know where Scott is and Stiles says no and Jackson freezes. They're then thrown into a room. Scott then shows Derek the spiral on the deer and says this is what brought your sister back to Beacon Hills, right? Derek asks him where he got it. Scott then says his boss told him that 3 months ago that someone came into the clinic asking for a copy of the picture and it was Peter's nurse. Scott says they brought his sister there so he could kill her and become the alpha and that's why Derek is going to help him. Derek breaks the restraint and says he'll help Scott. Chris tells Stiles about when one of his friends turned on the full moon and he had to kill him. He then asked Stiles if Scott tried to kill him during the full moon and he says yes and he handcuffed him to the radiator. Stiles then asks if he'd prefer if he locked him in the basement and burned the house down. Chris says they never did that and Stiles says Derek said they have a code and B guesses that no one ever breaks it and Chris says never. Stiles then says what about his sister Kate? Scott and Derek are now walking towards the Hale house and Derek says something doesn't feel right. Scott cuts him off before he can say it was too easy and says that none of this has been easy. Derek is then shot by an arrow and Scott sees Allison firing them. Then she fires a flashbow and this disrupts Scott's vision and Derek tries to get Scott away from them. Allison then walks towards Scott and Scott says he can explain. She tells him to stop lying. He says he was going to tell her the truth at the formal. Kate then tells her to shoot Scott and Allison is shocked and says that she told her that they were only going to catch them. Kate then shoots Derek. Allison tries to stop her from shooting Scott and she pushes her away, then Chris stops Kate and tells her that he knows what she did and she says she did what she was told to do and she should put the gun down. Chris then says no one told her to murder innocent people and children were in that house, ones that were perfectly human. He then says look what she's doing now, she's holding a gun at a 16-year-old boy with no proof he's spilled human blood. Chris then says they go by the code, we hunt those who hunt us. Kate doesn't seem to care and she's slowly pulling the trigger. Chris then fires a bullet and says that she should put the gun down before he puts her down. The Hale house door opens and he alpha runs out and knocks Chris over, then Allison and Scott. Kate has her gun in hand, she's yelling come on. Peter grabs her hand with the gun and throws her onto the porch. He takes her up, drags her into the house. Allison goes in chasing after them. She sees Peter with his claws at Kate's throat. He says Allison looks like her but probably not as damaged, so he's going to give her a chance to save her. Peter says she should apologize. Say you're sorry for decimating my family and leaving me burnt and broken for 6 years and he'll let Allison live. She says she's sorry, then Peter rips her throat out. Allison rushes over while Kate slowly falls to the floor and Peter has flashbacks the fire. Peter says Kate's apology didn't sound sincere and Scott and Derek approaches him. Scott tells Allison to run and she does. Peter begins to fight Scott and Derek and it's clear that he's stronger. He starts to transform because he's angry and he manages to stop it. Scott then kicks him in the back and he begins to transform again, then Scott punches him in the face and the beast is still trying to take over and he throws Scott away and begins to transform. Stiles and Jackson are now driving toward the Hale house and Peter is fully transformed and he throws Scott through Hale house window and takes him up, then Scott pushes him away. Stiles then throws a Molotov cocktail at Peter and he catches it and Scott takes up Allison's bow and throws it to her and she fires at the cocktail and it explodes and Peter is covered with flames and Jackson throws alcohol at him and increases the flames. Peter starts charging towards Allison and Scott kicks him away. Peter is back to his human form completely burnt. Allison kisses Scott and he shifts back to his human form and he asks why she did that and she says she loves him. Her dad sees this and looks away. Derek walks over to Peter and Scott tries to stop him from killing Peter so he can do it to be cured. Peter looks at Derek and says you've already decided, I can smell it on you. Derek then kills Peter and looks back at Scott and says I'm the alpha now. The cops are now at the Hale house and they see Kate's dead body. The sheriff sees the pendant on her. Scott and Stiles are now at the hospital and they begin to check the bite on Lydia to see if she's healed, and it's not healed. Which means she's not a werewolf. Jackson is back at the Hale house and he's calling Derek. He said he helped save Derek and he got what he wanted, so now it's time for him to get what he wants, and Derek jumps down to him and bites him. Allison's mom and dad are now reading an article about Kate being connected to the Hale house fire. Allison mom says they'll be here in 2 days and Chris says they shouldn't have done it. He says the stupid necklace, and Victoria says the police would have put it together eventually. Scott and Allison are now on the rooftop and Scott kisses her and they look at the moon. End. Thank you all for watching. Can't wait to start season 2.